Production funding for Behind the Headlines is made possible in part by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
MLGW's JT Young on rate increases, TVA, and more tonight on Behind the Headlines. I'm Eric Barnes, President and Executive Editor of the Daily Memphian. Thanks for joining us. I am joined tonight by JT Young, President and CEO of MLGW. Thanks for being here again.
Thank you for letting me be here.
Along with Bill Dries, reporter with the Daily Memphian. I joked with you before, we're either brilliant in our timing or just completely lucky, but we had wanted to get you on since the MLGW has been in the news quite a bit. But just this week, Tuesday, the City Council rejected a number of rate increases that you all had put forward. They approved a 3% increase on water, but nothing on electric and gas.
Right. I
believe, and I'll let you talk about this, I believe you'd been looking for more of a 5-year plan of rate increases in 4 of those 5 years. What was that 5-year plan about? Why did MLGW come forward with wanting rate increases, I believe total about 10% over that 5-year period? What was that about?
Well, our strategy originally was to, as I've been using the term, sort of go long on improving our services for our customers. Nibbling at this a year at a time is difficult in our industry. We really need to make investments for the long term. We certainly needed to do that here to make the improvements that we needed for the improvement of the resilience of our network and our systems. So we made the decision to be able to do a 5-year plan to allow us to plan for, procure, acquire the equipment we needed and install that equipment over a time, as well as mitigate the impact of any rate increases on our customers. So instead of trying to do it all at one time, let's do one big rate increase, we decided to spread not just the installation process over 5 years, but as well, we wanted to spread out any cost impacts for our customers to give them time to plan and just to mitigate the any adverse impacts. So that was our strategy going in, because we felt like and we knew that we had substantial work to do, in particular on our electric and water infrastructure, and we wanted to go ahead and do that in a way that allowed us to be strategic and comprehensive.
And that proposal was about $762 million?
About $740.
$740,
right.
Okay, $740 million. Without that rate increase, how much that's capital improvement, I assume?
Predominantly capital.
Predominantly. How much are you limited to in terms of infrastructure improvements without that bigger increase?
So none of the $740 million really was approved, essentially. I mean, the 3% on the water relates to about a $2.5 million increase. There's about $100 million of what we call maintenance capital. So if you add that to the 740, it's about an $840 million number. But the maintenance capital is in our existing budget.
Okay.
And that's what we call break fix. That's when something fails, we go out and replace it. And our normal car hits a pole, we go put in a new pole.
That comes out of that 100 million.
That comes out of the 100. That's across all 3 divisions: electric, gas, and water. Okay. It's about 60 million in electric, and so that remains, and it's included right now, at least in our budget. We haven't gone back. We've got to go back and actually take another look since Tuesday at what kind of cuts we're going to have to make to accommodate where we are, and that's what we'll be doing later this week.
Cuts in spending or cuts in people?
Cuts in spending.
Yeah.
We are trying not to, of course, cut people. That's what we're trying not to do. Although at the end of the day, what we want to make sure that we do is maintain a great level of service for our customers. We believe that's what they expect and deserve. At the same time, we want to do right by our people. We want to make sure that our people, because they are the greatest asset we have. Of all the assets we have, our people are the greatest, and we want to make sure we treat them well.
Okay, Bill.
A year ago this month, we were at the same general place. The dollar amounts and the percentages were different in Jerry Collins' proposals for rate increases a year ago. But it was basically for the same general purpose, to improve the infrastructure of Memphis Light Gas and Water. So and you were just coming on board at that time. So was this a matter of you coming to basically the same conclusions that Collins came to?
Well, the difference I would strike, I mean, I think yes, to answer your question, I think the difference I would strike is that we wanted to try to, again, I think the original plan may have been around a 3-year arrangement. This was a 5-year arrangement, again, stretching it out a little bit longer for the reasons I mentioned before. But I believe that it's probably been well known for years that we have gaps and we have issues with our facilities and with our infrastructure. So that was really it didn't take a brain surgeon to figure that part out. But at the end of the day, it was more about the how. Right. And how we go about doing it. And that's what we were trying to do in terms of making it more palatable for our customers.
And the council members at the first meeting this month wanted you to go out and in essence really sell this to the public, to explain this to the public.
Yes.
And you did that between the 2 council sessions. What did you find in terms of the public reaction once you laid this out for them?
One of the things we learned fairly consistently with every session we had town hall meetings, we had Facebook and in-person town hall meetings, we did radio and TV, and we did a lot of things to reach directly our customers. And what we essentially learned, because we surveyed our customers following the town hall meetings that we had in the communities, and one of the things we learned was that after customers became aware of what we were doing and why, they were generally much more receptive to paying incrementally more for the better service. And but like most of us, we all want to know before we commit to something. We want to know what that's about. So I appreciate the council recommending that to us. We did that. We got some great input, and I believe that the data shows that once customers are better educated on what we're doing and why, they're very receptive.
Mm-hmm. So you now have to take what the council approved to your board so that they can ratify it, because that's how this works. You have a board, and,
right.
and you also have the city council that you go to. So you take it back to them, and as you've mentioned, you have to make some adjustments to your budget. Once you get past that, does the thought occur to you to maybe go longer, like a 7-year time frame, or are you even anywhere near looking at that?
No, we thank you for that question, but we actually are going to consider how better, what are some better ways to bring it. Apparently what we did this time was not palatable, so we know that doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is not going to work. So we're going to have to do something different, and we will. And so we're going to be getting together and trying to make some decisions around the structure of it. The issue doesn't change. The nature of what we have to do really doesn't change. We know what we have to do. What we'll be doing now is finding out what are some better ways to maybe approach this to make it a bit more palatable.
The same day you were at council, I think it was the same day, there was a big power outage downtown, or maybe that was the day before. It was
that morning, early that morning.
Coincidental, but in some ways is that kind of what you're speaking to? And I don't even know what went wrong that caused a very big power outage downtown.
It did.
What was that, and is that part of what you're talking about, ironically?
It is. We had a failure in one of our substations, and we had a failure of a major piece of equipment in our substation, and forensics are still being done to determine exactly why it happened, but at the end of the day, I'm not surprised that we had an issue regarding some of our older equipment. The equipment, one of the major pieces of equipment in that substation was installed in the 40s and 50s, and so mechanically it's just not going to be up to par. But that's the kind of thing and I describe it this way: you can always wait for something to break and then replace it. That's a strategy. Another strategy is to try to get out ahead of it and replace it before it fails. It's just like the Poplar 240 interchange. The bridge has probably just been there forever. It's been decided, rather than waiting for it to fall down, let's put a new one in. Yeah. That's what we do, and that's typical, and that's what we're trying to do on our equipment as well.
And back to what we talked about at the beginning, that replacement of that piece of equipment at the downtown substation will come out of that $100 million kind of ongoing capital. I mean, ostensibly. That's
well, if it can't be repaired,
if
yes.
it can't be repaired.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But otherwise, something like that, maybe
That's
not
right.
that one
That's right.
specifically, but something like
Exactly.
that will come out of that 740.
That's what we call our maintenance capital. Yeah.
Does that also get to, and I think we talked about this a year ago when you came on, give or take, right after you'd started, people talk during ice storms and they talk about trees falling and all the above ground wires. Why doesn't MLGW just put those underground? I'm sure you've heard that. I'm sure you heard it at the town hall meetings.
Yes, we did.
And why don't you?
Well, we do in certain areas have underground facilities. One of the perils of underground, while it's probably more aesthetically pleasing to the eye, one of the perils of underground, especially in a community like Memphis where you have a lot of trees, is you have a lot of tree roots, you have a lot of other things that could adversely impact what you have. But not only that, probably the biggest challenge with underground facilities, especially on the electric side, is the difficulty in accessing it when there are issues, and underground facilities fail. So we also had incorporated in our plan, we were bringing on some additional crews to help with that. We had plans for a contract to go out at 10 different locations to replace some underground cable that has failed multiple times, so many times that it just needed to be replaced, because we were trying to fix it, and unfortunately what happens when you do that is it's going to fail again. Yeah. And so we were trying to deal with that. So underground, I always tell people, it's not a panacea. It is one of the things that it does. Maybe it gets you away from issues with wind, but then you have other issues associated with underground as well. Plus the cost is exorbitantly higher. I've heard estimates from $3 to $5 billion with a B if we were to try to underground our total system. Plus the time and the effort, and it just may not be feasible to do that.
One of the things that comes up in this conversation about rate increases, and as a public utility, it goes through the city council, and is the burden on the poor. So that that's a big bill for a lot of people in a city that has a lot of poverty. So those rate increases, I think you all put out that the 3% on water worked out to something like 45 cents a month or something. Roughly, like, yes. For the average residential customer. But how do you balance that? I mean, and your board and your management team in terms of putting these rate increases on the table and going forward with them, do you calculate that impact on poor people? Absolutely. And did you hear from them in the town hall? Did you hear that concern raised again and again, or once or twice in those town hall meetings?
We didn't hear it a lot, but we did hear questions about it. And what we predominantly heard were concerns around customers wanting good service. And so, while the way we balance that, to your question about balancing that, is one of the ways we balance it is the company went for a long time without trying to raise rates on customers in an attempt, I think, to be sensitive to what you just mentioned. Last year, we were granted a 2% increase that went into effect in July for gas and electric, and that is baked into our current budget. But overall, to address the needs that we have, of course, a combination of a rate increase as well as debt issuances or bonds is what we had planned in our strategy to improve our infrastructure. We issue bonds to try to help offset the need for raising the rates, so that also helps mitigate the impact on all customers, including the financially challenged customers. And so we just try to make sure that we're sensitive with a litany of programs. I shared this many times during our town hall meetings. I've never been in a company, I've been in this industry 36 years, I've never seen a company like MLGW that has so many programs to assist customers who are financially challenged. We do that because we know it's a challenge for customers to meet their burden of payment. And so I think MLGW and the team has done a great job attempting to address that.
Yeah, 12 minutes, Bill.
As this proposal was making its way through the council, there was also a lot of discussion and actually a couple of studies released about Memphis Light Gas and Water possibly seeking alternatives to the Tennessee Valley Authority as what amounts to the wholesale supplier for electricity. You made this point several times that the rate increases that you were proposing had nothing to do with what TVA charges Memphis Light Gas and Water for electricity.
Correct. Yeah, we wanted to make sure everyone understood that not to conflate the two, because the power that we purchase from TVA is a pass-through to customers. Customers see that on their bill. It's delineated, And what ultimately happens, that power cost fluctuates. It can go up and down. And over the last 7 to 9 years, that overall price to our customers for the power supply cost has been relatively flat, up a little less than 1% in total, notwithstanding TVA's 1.5% increases periodically. But because of fuel offsets, those 1.5% increases have been largely offset because of some fuel decreases that customers have benefited from. So what we're trying to tell customers and trying to tell everyone is those costs for our power supply, wholesale costs, aren't baked into our infrastructure costs. Those are separate. We are looking, as we speak, we formulated a team now, and we're moving forward to consider options on the table, whether those options would include something different from TVA or something completely different, not including TVA. We want to look at the whole gambit, and then we're going to spend the next several months doing that with what we call an integrated resource plan process. Mm-hmm. That plan will actually allow us to consider whether or not we want to continue to purchase wholesale power, or do we want to generate our own in some fashion? Do we want to have a combination of the two? So there are a lot of things to consider, and we don't want to make a knee-jerk reaction. We actually have 4 studies now that have been presented, all of which tell us something regarding potential savings on the marginal cost side when you compare it against our total all-in cost with TVA. So what we want to try, and when I say marginal cost, I'm talking primarily about fuel cost and the cost for the generation to get the power to mm-hmm. us. We have other costs that we have to pay for that service to get to us that's not necessarily included in every study that we have. Some have, and overall they all indicate that there's a potential for some savings. One of the things that we're concerned about is making sure that we've looked at some of the utilities who serve customers outside of TVA. Our costs tend to be the lowest in the valley and among the lowest in the country. Even against some of the companies who actually take service from entities like MISO, for example, we're very competitive.
Who MISO is?
MISO is the Mid-Continent Independent System Operator, which operates a large number of, it's a sort of what they call a regional transmission organization. Companies can purchase power from that entity and provide that energy to their customers. So in effect, it could be like a TVA serving, a customer like MLGW. We've looked, and we are still looking at options that include that, but other sources, because at the end of the day, what I'm charged with and what I've sworn an oath to is to make sure we're doing what's in the best interest of our customers for the long term. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're going to look at, and that's why we have to be very diligent about this process as we move forward. And
the other cost that would be involved in this would be setting up a transmission system. You have a transmission system now with the Tennessee Valley Authority. You don't with MISO or the other suppliers.
Correct.
On this.
Yeah, we actually have, and that's been a benefit to our customers, actually, that we have our own transmission network, and we've received a transmission discount from TVA because of that. And so that's an advantage that our customers have enjoyed for a long time. And we also know, and everyone may or may not be aware, that contractually we have a 5-year notification that we must provide TVA if we were to leave TVA or do something different. And so we couldn't unplug today and plug in tomorrow to any other company. At the end of the day, though, you're always in a better position when you have options. Right. And we believe we do have options, and we're going to look at all of those options for the best interest of our customers. So what about the idea that, okay, by the most general estimate of 2 of the studies, there's a 200 to 3 million savings, those studies say, mm-hmm. on basic electricity rates compared to Tennessee Valley Authority. Yeah. So the people advocating for those positions have said, okay, well, you just take the savings from that, float some bonds, and then you've paid for your transmission system. Is it that simple? It's not to me. And the reason it's not to me is because what you have to remember is those studies are based on certain assumptions. We would, before we actually commit to any route that we would take for service for power supply, we'd want to make sure that we've determined that's the best option. So one study may say $200 or $300 million, and then we go that route, and another study may come 6 months later and say, well, we could have saved you $500 million. So that's why we have to do this deliberately in an open environment where we can be transparent and where we can get input from a number of entities if that's the path we decide to go. Plus, we have to decide what type of mix for resources do we want to have? Do we want to just take all from one source, or do we want to have multiple sources for diversity? So it's not as simple as just saying, okay, there's $200, $300 million there, let's go for it. We couldn't do it that way. We'd actually have to go through our plan and actually ultimately go through a bid process, as you would imagine, something this large. It had to be competitively bid. Our board has to be involved, ultimately City Council. So it's something that is going to take a little time because it's a pretty big deal.
In the fall, a proposal came forward that was in my mind sort of the precursor to this, or maybe what a lot of people tuned into it was a nuclear power plant in Alabama. Frank Haney, an investor developer from East Tennessee, wanted to buy that plant from TVA, and it's never been finished. He would finish it out at some couple $2 billion, give or take. But that was dependent on getting a contractor commitment from MLGW to be the primary customer for that power plant. Is that proposal dead?
Well, we signed, as you know, prior to my arrival, MLGW signed a non-binding letter of interest with Nuclear Development LLC to purchase the output of the Bellefonte plant. It was singularly about that. It is our understanding right now that they don't own that plant, so they don't really have anything to offer, and the plant's not running.
And they missed their deadline.
Right. So it's our understanding that that's over. We're pursuing, again, think about it this way, by virtue of the fact that we've seen these other studies that have come, sort of proves my point. Had we just jumped on that, right, there are now other studies saying that there are other ways to save. Right. So that's my point about why we have to be very deliberate. We can't just take something that one person brings and jump on that and ride that horse. We have to be very deliberate, and we have to look our hand over.
And I mean, even that proposal in part relied on MISO, right? Isn't that correct?
It did not. The non-binding letter, the non-binding letter of interest we signed had nothing to do with MISO.
Okay.
It was just about taking the output of the Bellefonte plant. So MISO was nowhere in that. We are, of course, should we choose to pursue anything along the lines of MISO, we will engage them. We're actually going to probably have some conversations with them. We will take care of that. We can handle that part. So.
Right now, with 4 minutes left here, right now, the bulk, if not all, you tell me, the electricity for MLGW comes from the new power plant down, the Allen power plant. What percentage comes from that, or the old one? Where are we on that?
Well, we are a 100% requirements customer of Tennessee Valley Authority, so we actually take power from their whole network.
Okay.
The Allen plant, the way it runs, and I don't want to get too deep here, but the way it depends on when those plants run. That plant is a very efficient plant, so it probably runs a lot. It's their newest, most efficient plant. But we take power, of course, we take more power than that plant can provide, so generally we need more than that output anyway, which was the same situation with Bellefonte. We needed more than that plant could provide. So we take energy from the TVA system overall, which is why we get the benefit of fuel diversity across their network.
What is your understanding? I mean, that is a TVA plant, but the old plant, the coal ash that's there, what's the status of the coal ash and what happens next?
Yeah, so I'd have to let TVA speak to the status of that. I'm not sure. Okay. I'm not aware of the details of that, so I'll let them speak to it.
Okay, just a couple minutes left. Bill.
Can you take bids on alternative sources for electricity before you sever the relationship or tell TVA we want to change it?
Absolutely. In fact, that's the process. Will probably work that way. As we go down this process, we will probably move through the integrated resource plan, figure out what the optimal arrangement for resources would be, put that out for bids and say, okay, here's what we're looking for. And depending on what we find from that, TVA is welcome to be a part of that as well if we get to that point. And so that's probably how that process would work.
Mm-hmm. The Friends of the Earth Commission, the study that I saw last week, it talked about possibly Memphis Light, Gas and Water having its own electric division, which would also generate its own power.
Right.
What about that? How realistic is that?
That's another piece of this integrated resource plan, because it looks at whether or not should we be in the generation business. We're not today. That again, remember, that adds a different structure to our makeup, because we don't do that today. We don't have the staffing for that today. But if we were to get into that, we would have to staff up for it, manage that, own and operate likely facilities associated with that. But that may still be in the best interest of our customers, and to the extent it is, we'll pursue that.
With just a minute left here, the aquifer. So it came up on the radar screen of a lot of folks a couple years ago when this new TVA plant was proposed, and they were going to take water. Originally, they talked about taking water from the river or gray water, which is semi-treated water in layman's terms, and then they were going to drill directly into the aquifer, and a whole lot of folks locally got very. Some have seen the Protect the Aquifer signs. That also exposed that, or made light the fact that a lot of people could just drill directly into the aquifer, industrial, various plants, and so on. Where do things stand with the aquifer? And you all don't manage the aquifer, but you're obviously the biggest consumer of it. What is the safety and future of the aquifer?
Yeah, and as I understand it right now, our water quality still remains pristine. We don't have not seen any adverse impacts from the deep aquifer where we get our water supply from. TVA at the new Allen plant actually purchases water from us now. They abandoned the wells that they were looking at, and the study that's being conducted is a 5-year study to really look at, if I'm not mistaken, the shallow aquifer area, to look at the impact of any adverse impacts in that regard. But I'm not aware of any quality issues associated with the aquifer for our customers.
All right, that is all the time we have. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Bill, and thank you for joining us. Join us again next week.